record. Yeah.
Probably put it on that 24-hour erase thing.
Oh, don't worry. No one's going to see it except this group anyway. All right. So I am officially recording. So, hey, everybody. It's good to see your faces. Marcy, you're just finishing up a showing, right? I told you text your husband the info because I don't have his cell phone number, but I tagged him in the Facebook post. Okay. Anyway. All right. So for our weekly huddle this week, at last minute, I was talking to Eric and EJ today at True Trust Services. And I was talking to them about a specific deal that we're looking to do and kind of like go in as a joint venture with a client of ours that wants us to renovate a property for them. And I was like, well, I'm not a contractor, so you can't hire me as a contractor, right? But we can go in together. I can manage the renovation for you and everything. And then at the end, we can give you back control of the property. So we were talking about different ways, options to do that, and then even running our businesses out of trust. And they had such good information and kind of a little bit mind-blowing, a little bit different than what you might have heard at other Fortune Builders training. So I asked if we can get some information straight from the horse's mouth and if these guys wouldn't mind joining us for a little bit today, and they agreed at last minute. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to jump in here. And with that, EJ, I'll let you take it away and kind of explain what you guys do.
Well, I started off in real estate myself. I got my real estate broker's license at 19 years old, and I was afraid of screwing up my life with somebody suing me someday for a roof leak or something. So like everybody else, I explored corporations and LLCs. And the problem I had was I wanted to use a disposable one, because if I put everything into one trust or one LLC or corporation and somebody sued the corporation, I would still have the same problem. Everything would be tied up until I got things resolved. So I really needed to separate them, which meant a separate entity for each property. And of course, that would be pretty expensive if you did a separate corporation or LLC with every house you bought. I planned to buy 5 or so a year, and I didn't want to get caught in that trap. So I looked at trusts, and half the attorneys told me, no, it won't work, and half told me it would work. But nobody could give me final information. It took me about 5 years to actually figure out exactly what works and why, it works if you do it the right way. And by that time, I'd already done about 50 houses or so for myself. And I had grown my company to be the largest real estate company in the state. As it turned out, the type of trust we needed, had to have certain language in it. And, there's over 100 different types of trusts. And at that time, typewriters were the thing to go. And the attorneys were charging anywhere from $25,000 to $85,000 to do usually doctors more than anybody else, or real estate, big real estate companies. And as we got ours perfected, pretty soon everybody was asking for a copy of our trust. And so we ended up having a bigger trust company than a real estate company. As it's turned out over the years, I've bought over 1,600 houses, and I bought over 3,500 pieces of real estate, vacant land. And now our trust company is doing much better. I sold the real estate company. The basics are kind of strange. Like a lot of language that's been misused or redefined, people don't realize what trusts are. And to start off, we have to start off with a will. Everybody thinks a will do everything, and really you should call it a maybe or a won't. Because the will has to go to court, and then the court decides whether or not things are going to happen the way you want them to happen. A living trust should be called a will, because while you're living, it does nothing. It's worthless. Everybody thinks that they're going to do a living trust, which you can get for anywhere from $79 to $3,000 or $4,000. And a living trust should be called a death trust or a will, because it really will happen when you die, but up until that point, it's worthless. The type of trust we do is called a private asset protection trust. And 1,000 trusts. We've never had a trust busted. We've never had a trust declared improper or illegal, and we've never lost an asset. And our methodology to use that system is to have a separate trust for each separate significant asset. So if you had 3 motorcycles that are worth $50 a piece, it wouldn't be worth separating maybe. But if you have 3 cars that have $5,000 or $10,000 equity in each one, or 3 houses, or you plan to get those things, you can do a separate trust for everything. And in fact, I've never had a bank account, yet I sign on 500 different bank accounts or so at most of the time, because each bank account, each vehicle, each retirement asset, each real estate property, each contract that I do, we do in a separate trust. And it's only the first one that's really the hard one, because once we figure out what we need to do and who's in charge and who gets the goodies when you die and who's going to be your backup person and what your asset is, and your goals of success and income, we can take and set up your first trust. Doing additional trust after that is not a big deal. It takes about 15 minutes per trust to do those. So most clients we have end up with around 10 or so trusts. Again, 1 for a bank account or 2, and 1 or 2 for cars, and 1 for their retirement. We can protect your 401k or your Roth. 1 for insurance, 1 for collectibles, maybe 1 for a boat, and 1 for each real estate property you have. The thing about having them separate is they're short and sweet. They're about 10 or 15 pages long. Not the same language in every type of trust, but they're similar, very similar. And once you understand one trust, you'll understand the other ones. But the fact is that because there's only one asset in each one, you're operating on that. Just like if you're working on your car, you've got a folder for your car, and when you go to get it worked on or get it sold, you pull the folder out because you don't know the VIN number and you don't know the license plate number maybe. So you pull it out and you see, oh, I put 2 tires on this 6 months ago. Oh, I put a new battery less than a year ago and there's still a warranty on it. Well, that's all in the folder. Same thing is true about each asset that's in each trust. You probably have a separate folder. So it's really easy to manage. And since the language is the same, you know right where to look for the important stuff. It's a very simple thing to do. And because it's separate, there's a lot of additional benefits. For example, if I sell a car, I always ask somebody, do you want to buy the car, or do you want to buy the trust that owns the car? And of course, they'll say, what's the difference? And I say, well, if you buy the car, I sign it over to you. You got to go get it smogged. You got to go stand in line at DMV for 2 or 3 hours if you can even get in there. And you've got to pay for new license plates, because even though I had 8 months left on mine, that's throwaway money. Oh, and you have to pay sales tax for a transfer. So all those things are like $1,800 or so in many cases. But if they just take over the trust, I just sign off as the trustee, the person in charge, and I put them on as the person in charge. No smog control, no sales tax, no transfer, no standing in line at DMV. It still is owned by the same trust, such as the 2020 Land Rover Holding Trust. That'd be the name of the trust. And the same thing happens on real estate. We put real estate in there, the 1717 Flower Street Trust, which would only own that one real estate property. And it keeps it easy, and it makes it even easier to do things like joint ventures, for example. Because in a joint venture, you'd have special beneficiaries on that, might be 50-50 or 60-40 in there, could even be more than that. And you can change it as you want as time goes on, which you can't do too easily in other situations. And you don't have to go down and change things at the recorder's office every time. Other interesting things are that, it's more private. And even when you sell that property, there's a chance to save even more money, just like I was talking about with cars. You could actually transfer that real estate property much easier than a 1031 exchange without hardly any rules. I mean, there's no rules at all. You just transfer the property to a new trustee, and they give you something for it, and goodbye trust, they've got it. So we've done a lot of exchanges, like a 1031 exchange, for example, in trust. Everybody puts their stuff in trust, and then they just trade trusts. The privacy issue is awful nice too. Right now, if you're driving down the street and somebody takes down your license plate number, they can show up at your house, they know your name, they know your address on your house. They might show up with flowers, or they might show up with a baseball bat. You don't know which, depends on how you drive. and how cute you are. But the fact is, it'd be much nicer if they only had your PO box and they only had the 2020 Land Rover Holding Trust. They wouldn't know how to harass you. Same thing goes on your house. So if they only knew the 1717 Flower Street Trust, it wouldn't tell them who's got equity in the house, who's got what's where. And it's even better than a prenuptial agreement in that regard, because if you go into a marriage with no assets, because everything's in trust, you have nothing to divide or argue over as to assets if you guys break up. And you don't have to get them to sign that nasty document that says, I love you no matter what, and everything is fantastic, and let's all be in love. But first I want you to sign this thing that if it doesn't work out, you're not going to try and screw me on my assets. It's nice to not have to sign any document, because trust doesn't require them to sign it if they're not the beneficiary. Even though you might end up sharing with them out of your trust, if you stay together forever, obviously that's what will happen. But you don't have to go that way if things don't work out. So the privacy, blended marriages where you have different assets going to different people, all those things are very simply done in a trust or a separate trust for each separate asset. In my case, I've been married before, so I have assets that go to some children from previous marriage. And my current wife, although she doesn't care, I wouldn't even have to tell her about that trust. It's none of her business because she's not involved in it, and vice versa for going the other. And it does prevent you having to worry about getting lawsuits, although you should pay if something is your fault. If somebody falls off your porch and hurts themselves, I would expect you'll have homeowners insurance, and also you'd probably if they broke a tooth or something, you'd probably pay for the tooth. If the insurance didn't pay, and if you have child support or whatever, you should pay it. We won't help people that we don't believe are reasonable, fair people. But that's the way it works. If somebody sues you and they want $300,000 damages for a broken tooth, that's a little extreme. You can tell them, well, I'll try and get the money for you, but I don't know where we're going to get it. And they wouldn't know either. So the safety would be right there for you. If there's any questions so far.
Well, EJ, can you explain that how you would handle the active side of the business? So for us that are actively flipping properties, would you set up trusts for each property that you flip, or just one overall? Because we talked briefly today about not really needing that LLC anymore. So if you can kind of go into a little bit more detail on that.
Sure. First, let's talk about the difference between LLCs and trusts, because there really isn't hardly any, except on a LLC, you have to pay for each state you're involved with. So if you use a Nevada LLC or South Dakota or New Mexico, you'd have to pay there. Then you'd also have to pay in California. So you'd end up paying twice, first of all. And second of all, you have to pay annual fees, do annual reports, do annual tax returns. That's a problem. Although it is a pass-through, so you don't get stuck for double taxes, it's still painful, and it's not very private, and most people use one LLC, which means if you get sued with one real estate property, they're all at risk for the problem. Whereas if you use a trust, you don't have the reporting, you don't have the annual fees, you don't have to worry, it's valid in all states at a time. There's no annual taxes. You still would have to pay profit tax, on any profits come through there, but it'd be passed through. And yes, you'd have a separate trust for each property. And in my case, I always bought the house in trust in the first place. Although you could buy it, if you needed to for financing, you might have to put it in your name first. I always found a way around that. I never did that, but quite a few clients did do it that way. And then we got two choices. We can either change the ownership of the property to the trust, and there's no taxable event doing all that, or we could transfer the equity, like a second mortgage or a first mortgage, into trust, which is not quite as good, but sometimes there's occasions where it's handy. As far as your business goes, or any kind of business that has a storefront, or like if you're a licensed real estate broker, or a chiropractor or a licensed contractor. You have an LLC just because that's what everybody's used to seeing, and that's what makes sense sometimes, rather than arguing or trying to explain to them, need to do it that way. But virtually all of our clients that are in other types of stuff like buying and selling do just like consultants do, and they just do the trust as their legal business entity, which gives them a little savings on see there. If you already got an LLC, you might want to continue with it, but I certainly wouldn't continue or ever buy real estate in an LLC. Some places they tell you, well, have your trust own the membership in the LLC, but that's just extra accessory you're paying for. You only need the trust. You don't need an LLC and a trust. And some people say, well, let's put together an umbrella trust and feed everything into it, or an umbrella LLC or corporation, whatever. And again, that's just unnecessary baggage. Plus, if you ever do go to court, it doesn't look near as reasonable and fair and honest. It looks a little slippery that you have all these weird organizations that you can't explain that require all kinds of extra bookkeeping. You don't really need any bookkeeping on a trust. You need a little bit of bookkeeping on a LLC, and you need a lot more bookkeeping on a corporation. But trusts are have any necessary bookkeeping. You might do everything in a single bank account to make it easy, and do what they call shoebox accounting out of the bank account, or checkbook accounting. That's very simple. But if you're going to buy and sell multiple properties, I'd have a separate bank account for each master renter's account that I put all my rent checks into as a management account. But most people, that's their big question. Should I just have a single account and do it, or should I? I have 4 properties with 3 or 4 renters in each one. Should I do a separate one? Probably just simpler to have a single one in that case, just for the rental income. But for the ownership of the properties, I would certainly separate them. That's where your risk is. Any other questions?
Well, I'll piggyback off that with the bank accounts. So one of my earlier questions was going to be, does every single trust need a separate bank account? But you kind of just alluded that if you have a couple of different properties and a few different trusts, you can still just have one bank account that those rents come into.
Well, if one of my daughters gave me a $200,000 doll collection, I'd put it in trust instantly if it wasn't already in trust. I would not open a bank account for it unless I was buying and selling dolls. It wouldn't make any sense. Now, if I was renting them out to exhibitions, or if I was putting them on commercials, or buying and selling valuable dolls, and by the way, I have a client that does this, then I would consider having a bank account. I'd probably use the same bank account as the name of the doll account ownership. That's simple enough. So you don't need 2 separate accounts. On the other hand, if I was buying a car, there's no bank account necessary for a car. It's kind of silly. Unless I was in the taxi business, I wouldn't do that.
Okay. Hi, this is Wendy. I have a question. What about tax implications? Currently I've got 3 LLCs and a couple of trusts. That 2 of the LLCs, I've got 2 different EINs. This sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like I've got things tangled up a little bit.
Well, it's a necessary evil. If you got the LLCs, you have to do the LLC tax return, and you got to, you'll pass it through to yourself, I'm sure, and then pay it on your personal tax return. You don't need to do the trust returns if you pass it through to yourself. So there is some savings in doing extra tax returns and more disclosures, more opportunity for an audit. Sure, big savings there. Now, whether you're using LLCs or trusts, if you're making big money, and I say big money more than 100,000 or so a year, especially once you get like 200,000, you can take those profits and move them into a tax-free zone. Whether you use an LLC or a group of them, or trusts either way, and even corporations. You can move the profits. That's what the big boys do. You know, Google and Apple and Microsoft and GE, and it goes on and on and on. That's what they do. They move their money into tax-free zones or super reduced tax zones, and we help some clients do that. Although that's not our main business. It's something that everybody asks for once they start hitting the big time.
Yeah, and so can you still have like a solo 401k that you would have with you know, your business entity, like with an LLC? If you're the single member LLC, you can have a solo 401k. Can you still do that with the trust?
Yeah, and in fact, most of our clients don't even bother with the solo. What they do is they just roll over their 401k or their Roth or whatever they got, traditional Roth, doesn't matter. They roll those over, and then we do what they want. So the biggest problem with those types of things is a lot of times there's a hardship clause or a repayment requirement within 6 months or so. And we have a way of getting around that because we can loan the money from a separate unattached entity and then maintain the original account. Therefore, it adheres to all the rules. So a lot of people like that. And we're also such a small company that if the government, and more likely when the government takes and forces your retirement funds into treasuries or bonds because they're so broke, they're printing money that doesn't mean anything anymore. I mean, all that $1,200 they're giving everybody this year, somebody's gonna have to pay that back. The poor people can't pay it back, so somebody's gotta pay for them. The rich people won't pay it back because, you know, they're not going to make any money or they'll move out of the country. And, you know, the only people, the businesses certainly won't pay it back because they'll just pass on the costs to their customers or get a freebie from the government. The people that'll have to pay it back is the so-called middle class. Next year, taxes will go up. Following year, taxes will go up until the system doesn't work anymore, which is really kind of where we're at already. If you look at math, if you know anything at all about math, I don't care how you say it, 2 and 2 doesn't equal 9 and never will, no matter how they try and tell us how wonderful it is that it won't equal 9 until next year. At some point, it will equal what it's supposed to equal. And you know, the financial crash is not if, it's already when. We're in the financial crash now. Chase Bank said a few days ago that the financial situation we're in right now is 5 times worse than it was in 2008. And I believe they're fudging it. I think it's 10 times worse. I think that they just don't want to, they didn't think anybody would believe them if they said it was 10 times worse. The fact is government has no money and they're printing literally $200 billion a day out of thin air, and the left hand's writing a check to the right hand and the right hand's writing a loan back to the left hand. You know, it doesn't mean anything until somebody says this has to be paid, you know, or your money is, you know, there's too much money. I mean, if I gave you a watermelon today and said, pay me for the watermelon, you'd probably be willing to pay $5 or $10 for it. But if I said, oh, by the way, I got 10 more, you probably wouldn't pay $10 for each one of those. And if I walked up a couple of days later and said, I got 200 watermelons, you'd say, what do I need watermelons for? I still got some from the last time. And that's what happens when you print too much money. At some point, people know that, you know, this money is going to be devalued. It's not going to be worth anything. If you look at our dollar based on 1971 value of gold, our U.S. paper greenback has already been devalued 98%. 98% less value today than it was in 1971. And yet gold, for 800 times the countries have gone broke, gold has stayed the same value all these years, you know, for 6,000 years. And it has unique values besides, you know, it's pretty. It's just considered a store value. It can be used in medicine and machining, and it doesn't rust. You can put it inside your body. You know, this is what makes gold valuable, and there isn't a lot of it, and they can't print more of it. So, you know, that's a big thing. So be very careful, you know, if you're talking about getting into other types of assets. You know, it's nice to have something you can really count on. We'll be off the line for just 1 second here. Let me put them on hold here.
He's getting a phone call, folks.
Yeah, he's busy.
I can tell. Well, I mean, I want everybody to be able to ask some questions, and then before EJ wraps up, I do want to let you guys talk about specifically kind of what you do for your clients. And,
Right on. Yeah, go ahead and ask them how to run your real estate business in multi-states, especially if you want a joint venture. That's a good question for EJ. If you can explain how to run your real estate business and joint venture across multiple state lines.
All right. Well, number one, there's no concern about multiple state lines doing our trust. It's based on federal law, not state law. Therefore, we don't have that each state requirement to worry about. Secondarily, just like you would any business, you keep everything into an accounting system, just like you would if it was yourself or whatever. If you're doing a joint venture, then you want to isolate that into a separate account, which can be done with a bank account, and an agreement of who's going to do what. What we typically do for flippers and a few other people, some people that are joint venture on a different type of business, is we do the business in the trust, but then we also do what we call an operating agreement on the side, which means party one, say there's two people involved, party one would have certain duties, say day-to-day management, day-to-day purchasing and selling and inventory control and things like that. And party two might be the guy with the good credit that can go out and get or has money, he can put money into the business. And maybe he's got a lot of traveling. He goes to trade shows or seminars, and possibly he's a contractor. He can take and do improvements. I don't know how changing a hat makes it any better, but you're on a motorcycle there. Looks like you're on a motorcycle bouncing.
I apologize, guys. I'm in the car. I'll just shut the video off so you guys will get to see it.
But yeah, managing your real estate business, if you wanted to call yourself, Success Properties Trust or Success Properties Group, something like that, certainly you could do that, and that could just handle the day-to-day operations of the business. But when you actually purchase the property, it'd be smart to put that into a separate trust. And that way your business might not have any assets or liabilities or worries. And even if you got sued, it wouldn't have anything to lose. But your real estate property would always be safe and separate from any other thing. Any other questions?
I want to put Liz on the spot because I see Liz and Scott talking over there, so I know they're thinking about something.
Throw some questions out here. Let's hear them.
No, that's true. And we just are talking because, we have one revocable living trust, and just knowing, the properties, how would we structure what we're doing now different than what we're doing? So I don't know if you want to chime in there. So I just asked him, how do we do that? And what did you say?
Well, yeah, it just comes down to a cost and what's the benefit for each one of these properties. As you were stating earlier, it just has to have a certain value to it, to where you have to offset that cost. And maybe in some cases you put more than one property in the trust until there's a greater benefit. I know we're not talking about fees or what it costs for the trust, but I guess if we were to lose that property in the long run, how much is it worth then to be able to set up a trust to begin with?
First of all, again, I want to remind you, a living trust is worthless while you're alive.
Right.
The second you die, that's when it actually starts to work. If it's done correctly, you probably wouldn't have to go to probate, but in some states, they still go to probate. And certainly if any of your beneficiaries think they didn't get their fair share, maybe they borrowed it already and they want to tell the court that they paid it back, they would contest it and try and get their share all over again. So a living trust is not the way to go. Whether it be a living trust or our type of trust, you could put all the properties into one trust. It wouldn't be any easier to manage. In fact, I think it's at least the same or harder manage. But you certainly wouldn't have any safety between the different properties. If you own 3 apartment buildings side by side, everybody knows you own those 3 side by side. And if they're all in the same trust, somebody falls off any one porch where you push them off. The fact is they can sue all 3 properties. Whereas if you had 3 separate trusts, each one, even though they might be called the 1717, the 1719 and 1721, Flower Street Trust, each one totally separate. If you pushed them off the porch on one, they could certainly sue you, and you don't have anything in your name because everything's in trust. And they could sue that one property because you were the guy that pushed them off in front of 50 witnesses and all the video cameras everybody's got today. So you're going to probably lose. Well, you would one property possibly in court, but it wouldn't have any effect on the other 2, even though they could say and scream to the judge, he also owns those other 2 properties. It wouldn't matter. The judge would say, well, it's not his.
Yeah.
These are separate.
So how hard is it to set up the one trust that then, as you said, you set up the one and then the other ones kind of come faster and are easier to set up? So how hard is it?
If I was going to build cookies, I'd have to take the metal and bend all the way around and make myself a perfect cutting instrument for the cookies. And I do the first one. That took me an hour and 45 minutes or 3 hours to do. But then making all my other cookies, I take that cookie and I go bam, 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 bam. It's the same thing on the trust. The fact is that once we get your first trust figured out, you look at it, you ask all your questions, you make sure you're satisfied with the answers, and any changes you need, make sure we didn't spell the names wrong. And then you say, okay, I've got 3 other properties, boom, we do each one of those. It takes us like 15 minutes a piece.
Right.
We do private recording on it. We do separation, usually by address, to make it easy for you to make sure you're dealing with it. Having them separate, all the extra benefits are there. Now, we don't charge for additional trusts like that. We charge you the same whether you get 1 trust or 12 trusts. I don't care because it's not a significant difference to us at all. We're going to give you the same amount of customer support. We're open 7 days a week, 7 in the morning to midnight, even on holidays and on weekends. We don't leave for lunch. We eat lunch and answer the damn phone. So you can actually reach us no matter what we're doing. This pandemic, I should say plandemic, is not affecting anything that we're doing. When I go on traveling, because I'm building a resort in the Philippines, when I'm there, I answer the phone. So the only trouble is I have to answer it at 3 in the morning, and they say, I'm glad I didn't wake you up. Well, they did wake me up, but I didn't tell them I was in the Philippines, so they wake me up anyway.
So if we're buying and selling properties in a trust, and because we're rehabbers or flippers or whatever, is that still the best, not the best way, but that's still an efficient way to do it because I'm only holding this property for 6 months?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the way I feel too. Now, not only is it, it is the best way. It is absolutely the best way in my opinion. I've owned a bunch of LLC. I've created a bunch of LLCs for clients, but I've never, not even once, have I ever created more than 1 or 2 LLCs for people. And even then, I only created 1 or 2 because they had 2 separate types of businesses. Right. There was no purpose in having LLCs when you can do it a much more efficient, much lower cost way, just as safe in every regard, and valid in all states instead of 1 state at a time. And no annual reports, no annual fees. You're saving $500 a year, just without having to do some of that stuff, let alone a tax return. So, yeah, absolutely. Now, keep in mind, I consider all trusts that we do to be disposable trusts. Because if you call us and say, I sold that Land Rover, I'm buying a Mercedes, we'll say, fine, I'll send you a new trust. Because why would we want to send you or let you rely on the Land Rover trust when, maybe you get in an accident in that car and now your Mercedes is also at risk. They sue you for $10 million, your insurance is only $100,000 or $200,000. The rest is whatever assets are still in that ownership. So we wouldn't want that to happen. Same thing goes with houses.
EJ, I have a question. Do you know, are hard money lenders lending you money in a trust? Like they will lend you money sometimes personally or in an LLC. Is there any issues with trusts?
Occasionally, yeah, because a lot of lenders aren't that bright. That they actually have extra safety in a private asset protection trust. Otherwise, if you had a financial problem, you might bankrupt your whole self every way, every how, including if you had a living trust or an LLC that's got 3 or 4 things. And if you bankrupt it, you're going to have to bankrupt the whole thing. Whereas if you had separate trusts, they're on their own, you would only bankrupt a single property at a time, or maybe 2 properties, and you'd keep the other 7. You know, so anybody that understands it.
In that trust name, would we be purchasing the property in that trust name?
If at all possible. And in my case, I've made it possible every time. In my client's case, I can say about half the time. Yeah.
Marie, what would you do? You have to get that trust going, or would you switch it into the trust? Am I going to buy it as my Skyline real estate and then put it into the trust as soon as it can get set up and be done?
Well, we can do it on a moment's notice. So you could call us at the last second and say, they're accepting our offer. What do I call the trust? And then we'd say, you know, 1717 Flower Street Trust or whatever it is. On the other hand, what I do myself and what I recommend to everybody is when you say buyer's name, you put down your personal name or your company name, but you also say this little thing after that, exact vesting to be provided in escrow.
Yeah.
That way you can put in any trust name you want in escrow, and it's not a big surprise to them.
And the title companies don't have a problem with this?
Oh, no problem at all. The only thing you might have trouble with is really the lender. If the lender feels it has to be in your personal name, and most of them don't care about that if you give them a personal guarantee.
Yeah, well, I'm usually buying in my LLC name, so I'm assuming if my hard money lender is already good to loan me money to my LLC, would they see an issue with the trust, or would they think
they might? Yeah, they might. If that happens, we could take and pledge the equity and safeguard the equity that way, or you could ask them, can we put it in our trust? But you know, the LLC will still be responsible and be a co-signer, as well as I'll sign personally on it as well. You know, most lenders can get over that hump if that's the case, as long as you tell them before you get to escrow.
Well, because do you have to do personal guarantees, Marie, when you've done your hard money lending?
It's a good question, Liz. I honestly don't pay attention. I get money, I sign the paperwork, I'm like, hallelujah, I got another deal.
Two places to look.
I know I do with Boomerang, but what he's saying there is okay. I still like that because that's a good conversation to have with them. Can I do that? Because no matter what, they're still having me do a personal guarantee.
Yeah,
Right.
No, most people today do a personal guarantee, and you'll find it in 2 spots typically. You'll find it in the very first paragraph where they say, you know, XYZ LLC, as well as, and in addition to, you know, John Smith. Or you'll see it at the signature line. Almost everybody that wants a personal guarantee has a signature line down there. It says, you know, you're signing as president of the LLC or a senior member, and then you'll sign additionally on another line as individual guarantor.
Right.
So I mean, you'll see it pretty easily on all those contracts.
Yeah, I think I do a personal guarantee, which again, I think that hard money lender would be smart enough to say, yeah, if it's in a trust versus an LLC, I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, if they're small timers, you know, not a big ass organization like Quicken Loans or whatever, if it's a small timer, give me a buzz. I'll be happy to talk to them. You know, I can probably get through the hump. These big companies, you know, they just have a procedure. They don't care. You know, they do it their way.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about like a mortgage, like, you know, Chase Mortgage or you know, something like that. But I think that some of the smaller local hard money lenders that we deal with here in Arizona, I think those guys would probably be okay with it. But it's definitely something that I'm going to ask.
Yeah, well, we love talking to them because first of all, it'll help you, and second of all, we usually end up getting a client out of it.
Yeah.
Quite often. Same thing, you know, if you're going to sell your car and you want to ask that question, do you want to buy the car or buy the trust that owns the car? They'll say, well, what's the difference? Say, hang on, let me get EJ on the phone and or Eric, and buzz us right then. We'll answer the damn phone like we always promise. And we'll explain to them the difference. And there's a savings to be had. Plus, we usually about half the time we get a client out of it. So, you know, it's fun for everybody. It's like our little chess game that we do.
Hey, EJ, go over the difference if they want to buy a new car and they buy it into trust. What are some of the savings that they actually can have on a new purchase? because we're all investors, so we all make a little extra money and we want to buy a couple of nice things. How can we save money on those?
Well, occasionally, I have a method that is a little hard to explain, but I have a method where I can sometimes save you the sales tax on buying the car in the first place, which could be a lot of money. So that's too long of a conversation for this this call. But you know, we have that conversation once in a while with our clients, and most of the time they ask us to help them do that, and we'll show them how it works.
Yeah, we might have to have that conversation though, because my husband's now looking at 6-digit cars. So we'll want to save the sales tax on those. I told him 99,999 is my limit for his special car, like 5 digits, but he really wants the 6 digits. So
Well, I wanted a Bentley. I've always wanted a Bentley. It's been my dream car forever. But I thought a couple of years ago, well, you know, I could probably buy a used Bentley, 2, 3, maybe they all look pretty much the same. So then I was looking around. Then I found out it costs $5,000 to $15,000 a year to keep up with the service on them. And as much as I love Bentleys, I'm not going to, I guess, go get one. But you know, there's a lot of things out there we can want.
yeah.
I named my dog Bentley recently, so I got a Bentley finally.
You can name your other car Bentley too and just pretend.
Well, I do have a 39 Chevy Hot Rod that's got Corvette running gear. I've had that for 30 years. It's a great car, but I don't drive it much anymore. I'm going to have to sell it, I think.
The trust.
Yeah, it's in trust. No sales tax. Who wants to buy it?
So yeah, I guess, I mean, you kind of touched it a little bit, but basically once we become a client of yours and you do our initial trust, and then you have our template and then you can cookie cut all the rest of them. Like I think you stated, they can be done, you know, within a few minutes. So it's not an issue if at last minute we're trying to close on a house and we're like, hey,
Or buy a car
tomorrow, or I'm buying a car. Can you get me this trust? And it wouldn't be an issue. And you also mentioned that you're not charging per trust, right? So I think it was my understanding that there's, right, so there's like a one-time fee to be a client for True Trust Services. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then as many trusts as we want.
Well, there's a limit. I mean, if you called me up and said, hey, I'm going to start a pizza parlor, well, that's a different business entirely. You know, you're expanding your empire into new ventures. And yes, we would say, well, there's an additional charge. But if you said I sold 2 of my cars, I want to buy 2 more, we just give you a free replacement. Or I sold, you know, a house, we give you a free replacement. You know, it only takes a few minutes. It's done. We're all happy. And we all touch base to make sure that nothing big in your life changed. You know, maybe you've got a different beneficiary, maybe a new baby's born or something, grandkid or something. You know, that's all fine. We don't want to nickel and dime you, and I don't want to do the bookkeeping of trying to collect $15 by doing $15 worth of effort to collect the $15. So from the very beginning, we never charge for FedEx, we never charge for wire fees or doing replacement trusts or answering your question. And by the way, one of the big benefits, you know, our expertise is in real estate and in trust and in contract law. So if you said, hey, I'm thinking of, you know, getting into this timeshare or some other stupid thing or a business or whatever, or there's this big opportunity I've got, or I'm going to buy some silver or gold or something, call us up. We'll be happy to look at the agreement. If you're going to sign a non-disclosure, which are worthless, or any of these other things in life that people go through, you know, we're happy to go over the contract and give you our unbiased free opinion or a bias-free opinion. And then, you know, if you don't take our advice, it's okay, because we can all laugh about it later or cry about it.
I love that.
It's kind of fun for us too. You got to realize that, you know, if you ask us dumb questions, we all get to laugh. If you ask us, you know, very difficult questions that we don't know the answer to, we do the research and then we can answer it for other people. So, you know, it doesn't really matter too much.
Yeah.
And just to give you guys another thing is everything we do is completely private. So if you contact us and you want to go ahead and enroll in one of our programs, it's just between you and us. We don't disclose anything that you're up to, your financial requirements, to anyone. This is designed to be private and confidential for you and your family as well as your business. If you pull in a JV partner, we can help you set up an agreement that's completely disposable. So you can work with someone and really go through the entire transaction. And once you're done, you can just, close out the account and close out the trust if needed and go on your separate ways.
Yeah, and that also goes on to say people that end up getting divorced, which is a big thing in this country. Over 50% do get a divorce. Quite often, they'll say to me, one will go to the bathroom, the other one will say to me, we may not be together in a couple of years. What do we do then? I say, well, your stuff will be private and their stuff will be private. And then when the other one comes back and the other one goes to the bathroom, they usually say the same thing, which is hilarious to us. But we end up keeping both those clients separately, and we don't disclose, their other life. Anything that's not jointly shared, we don't jointly share. If they ask, if they make some comment like, "Yeah, I know his new girlfriend is a terrible person, and she's spending all his money, and I know they got that new Mercedes," all we say is, "Well, how life is. People do those things." I don't elaborate or confirm or deny because it's none of their damn business unless they already know. We don't worry about it. And that same thing goes for business partners. So our whole business is reliant upon referrals. We don't advertise. We've never advertised. We only work on referrals. And if we started sharing business between people that referred to us, they'd be terrified because, everybody has stuff they don't want to tell their best friend or their second cousin or their parents or children. We've got some families where we've got 4 generations. And, obviously, they got different types of lives, especially generations. So it's a very big thing to us to not compromise anybody's privacy.
That's good to know. I got some Italian mafia back in New York. We don't want anybody to know what goes on in Arizona.
They won't know. And that's the thing. That's the thing about this is that whatever you guys build up, it's your empire, and you get to build your own legacy the way you design that you can pass on to future generations. And this is one of the biggest things that help people build generational wealth is you have to plan now when you have assets and you have the ability to earn. You have to be able to pass it on to the next generation and make sure that it's unencumbered. And we've all heard someone that has that one grandkid who's just, we don't know, they end up in and out of certain situations, marry someone, they find out they have something, and they're like, oh, wow, you have a house. And they marry them thinking they're going to get access to this. With the trust, it prevents that because it still stays in the family for generations. And that is one of the key elements to build generational wealth. You have to protect yourself now. And an LLC will not provide that same future protection without a lot of paperwork to maintain it each year.
Yeah, that's a real big issue because a lot of people, they leave, their kids are 10 years old, they leave everything to their kids in the future. They're thinking everything's fine. But the kid becomes 17 or 19, gets they hang out with the wrong people, maybe get married to them. And then all of a sudden, your stuff is going to people you don't want, especially if they break up. Then they get fight over it. Whereas the way we set it up, they're never included, they're never named on there, and they have nothing to fight over because they could never get it in a court of law, could never get it. Not unless you name them yourself in your trust, could they get it.
So can you do a quick claim deed into once you bought a property in your LLC into a trust?
You can, yes. Although a quick claim deed, I tell a lot of real estate agents that quick claim deed is really overused, misused, and abused. It's typically done in many, many cases. But if you really want the definition of a quick claim deed, it's basically saying, I never had, or I no longer have an interest in this property. And that doesn't really fit the situations that it's used for, because like a divorce, for example, they usually have them do a quick claim deed when they should say they're releasing their interest that they used to have. And a grant deed is I'm granting, a warranty deed is saying I'm guaranteeing this deed is good. In our case, we usually do a deed to trust, which is a non-taxable transfer. And we do the deed for you, so you don't have to do them. We do all that kind of paperwork.
Cool.
And that's not an extra charge. That's all part of the deal.
Mhm. Any other good questions out there, guys? Think of some challenging stuff on how to operate your business. And EJ has had, like I said, over 45 years of experience, and he's seen just about everything. And even when it comes to partnerships, agreements, you know, how to move assets, if you guys have some guns or jewelry, I mean, these are all things you can put into these trusts as well.
Yeah, and there's separate types of trusts for separate types of assets. Usually not much difference between the trusts. I mean, they all operate the same, but we have a special gun trust that is doing more than the specialized gun trusts that are sold in some states that are designed around the BATF. We've incorporated all their language and elaborated beyond that. We also have a gold and silver trust that is designed to prevent the government from saying, oh, you transferred gold, that's a taxable transfer or gift tax. We have a way around that. So, you know, we're always looking out and paying attention to these things. And because our support is unlimited, we get people that are freaking out or paranoid or being attacked or been threatened with attack. You know, they call us and we go out and research it to make sure we know all the answers that we need, not just for them, but for everybody.
Yeah, and also earlier today, EJ, I know I had asked specifically about the real estate privacy trust that Fortune Builders talks about in some of their boot camps. And they literally, in one of the boot camps, were saying like, well, Arizona, you have to name your beneficiaries. So that real estate privacy trust is kind of useless. Or at least that's what I think I might have said back to them, like, oh, forget you guys, that thing's useless if I have to name my beneficiaries. But you talked about a workaround for that as well. So if you want to mention
well,
that.
there's a couple of states. First of all, we're not going by Arizona law, we're going by federal law. Unfortunately, real estate is owned in a certain state, and they will always try and flex their muscles if you don't play the game their way. So in Florida, in New York, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Arizona, in Louisiana, since they go by French law, not regular American law, all these states have some quirks. Colorado, they all have some quirks that we have had to make sure that not only do we abide by federal law, but just to keep them happy, we've got to deal with their interesting ways of doing business. And we've never had a problem with any of them, but other than it took us sometimes a lot of money and research to figure out how to do it properly.
Yeah, and I think you had mentioned that you can name the beneficiary initially. That becomes, part of, I guess, the public record, but then change that once. And there's
for Arizona, what we're doing for most of our people, including myself, is we're naming a charity as the beneficiary long enough to get the property recorded, because they declared that you can't record anything there unless you disclose the beneficiary. So we name the beneficiary, then after it's recorded, then we change the beneficiary. And there's nothing that says you have to, record or notify them that you changed the beneficiary. And most trusts, by the way, don't allow you to change the beneficiary. And that's one of the benefits of ours, is that you can.
That's good.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else got any big questions for EJ?
Well, you can always call us 949-497-3600. Or if you want to go to one of our websites, we've got truetrust.com and also True Trust Services.
Hey, I got a question.
Yeah.
What about international properties?
We do a lot of that. We've got offices in 7 countries right now, and I do a lot of international stuff myself. I'm building that resort in the Philippines, but we've got a lot of clients that are in other places and need it. Generally speaking, there is no trouble using trust pretty much anywhere, although it's not traditional to use it in most Spanish-speaking countries. So if you want to do it in Belize, for example, or you want to do it in Panama, no problem. But if you want to do it in Costa Rica or Chile or some of the other places that we do business, we have a very similar document that's a foundation. The rules are slightly different like for instance, you can't just have a single trustee, you have to have a board of directors. We'll provide the board of directors though, so it's not a big deal. And basically the senior board of director can do anything he damn well pleases, just like a trustee could. But we had to develop the language to make that work. So in some countries, they don't want you to own the property unless you own it in a resident name, you know. Usually we have a resident for you, by the way, if necessary, or a trustee, a local trustee that can be a token trustee for you. So, you know, we are aware of a lot of those things. We may not be aware of everything for every country, but we'll do the research, you know, if it comes up as an issue.
Can you own if you're a dual citizen?
Can you own if you're a dual citizen?
Sure. Yeah, usually that's not a hesitant restriction. The restriction, like in Mexico, they don't want you to own anything unless you're a Mexican citizen, especially on the beach properties.
Right.
So a lot of people were doing 99-year leases. You know, there's all kinds of ways people have been getting around this stuff. But one of my best friend, he went down to Mexico to have a baby just so he could he could own a Mexican restaurant, you know, resident. And he's one of our best friends. So we have a Mexican resident that we own that speaks English. In fact, he doesn't speak Spanish. So that's the funny part.
Now that's a twist, isn't it?
Yeah, but you go down to Brazil or a lot of countries, Mexico, Brazil, and build a baby and have instant ability to become a resident and a citizen. Not too many countries, but some of them. We don't know all the laws on passports and residency and all that, getting your citizenship, but we know quite a few of them, and I have a lot of resources available, and I can give you, you know, our resources, you know, so that you can find out if you want to have dual passports and all that stuff. We'll help you with that a little bit. We don't charge for that. It's not anything we want to create a business out of. But we're happy to help you. You know, anything that we can help you with, as long as you realize our main business is not selling investment information. We are a privacy and trust company that is happy to give you referral people or referral information or advice or, you know, whatever we've come across in life. And usually we have some pretty good resources.
So how much do you charge for your services?
Well, again, we only charge for the private asset protection trust pack, so you know, that's it. And it depends on your portfolio and your needs. But Eric, he'll quote you, you know, when he realizes what you really need. And if you are making enough money to deal with the tax-free zones, that's a separate type of package, and it does cost something different. But you know, no use buying that if you don't need it. We don't try and sell stuff you don't need.
A lot of times, just to answer your question, Roberta, we have everyone fill out a trust application as a start, because we want to see if it's a good fit for your business first before we start going over pricing, because we want to explore to see how much is this going to save you in the long term, and then see if we actually can work together, because it's a lot of new information that you have to go through as well. And we want to make sure it's a good fit for you, for your family, and for your overall business structure. One of the biggest differences with what we do, we look for the right fit for clients. We don't take everyone as a client. We just don't. We want to make sure that it's a good fit, that you understand how we work. We're all about taking care of us as American citizens, and we want to do everything we can to protect American citizens. And we want to ensure that whatever business that you have and whatever your overall life plan is, that this is a good fit for you. And that's something we're very, very adamant about. So everyone fills out a trust application first. Then we kind of do a couple of calls and really kind of filled out if is this the best fit for you. And then we give you a fee based on the needs that you have. To give you an idea, we have some clients that we run into that they make a boatload of money. They haven't filed taxes for 3 years, and they have tax bills of $190,000. We can help them. They have a different fee than someone that's just, you know, having a little mom and pop real estate investing company. So it's really dependent on what you have. And we like to go through each one of our clients individually just to ensure that we're taking care of you completely. And then once it's a good fit, then we're like, okay, this is a fee for service. And by the time we're done, most of our clients are like, yeah, that does make sense. And this is a good fit for our family. And remember, this is just a one-time fee. You're not having to pay for this fee every single year. And just like EJ was saying, we're not here to nickel and dime you. We're here to come in as a support for your business and for that little part of your life where you need professional services to make sure no one's screwing you and you're protected and they can't, form a lawsuit on you. Because most people right now that are in this room can come up with about 20 to 25,000 liquid cash for a quick lawsuit just to settle. We want to prevent that even from happening as well. So that's what we go through the intake process for everyone here. Does that make sense, guys?
Yep.
Yeah, I want to point out something else since we're talking about lawsuits. We've never been sued ever in any of the stuff we've ever done. We've never really had any court actions, although we help people, they get audited or have a court action, usually one or so a month, one of our clients, because we got like 350 active clients at any one time. We've done over 4,900 clients. I've never had any problem with anything anywhere except I had the IRS go after me because one of my clients did some big bucks and I helped move all the money internationally and they couldn't get them because they moved out of the country. So they wanted me and all my client list, and so they could harass all my clients. I told them no. So they said, well, we'll go after you then. And they wanted $280 million. And I was making a lot of money at the time. So, but I wasn't making it to me. I was making it in all of our trusts and so on. So they said they're going after me. I said, no big deal, because I didn't do anything wrong. And then my attorney said, well, get rid of all your records because they'll use those records to continually harass you forever. So we moved all of our records out of the country. But the problem was, they wanted $280 million. And it took them 12 years before they finally settled for $550. So that way they could claim they won. And I could be happy that, they're done. So that's how it all settled out. But it took, 12 years to get there. Just so you know that, sometimes they're not nice people, although you may feel otherwise. Most people, don't want to have to ever go through anything like that. But none of our clients have ever been harassed for what we do on trusts. It just doesn't happen. And none of our trusts have ever been broken in court, ever. Nobody's ever lost an asset because the trust was, the thing protecting it. To include me. They didn't get anything that was in any of our trusts.
That's a lot of information, isn't it? Makes you all think. And this is one of the things that we've been working with, and even since I've been with Fortune Builders, as all as I've met most of you, but that's one of the reasons why I go to these events, just to work with people, say, you know what, there could be a better method for you and your business and for you to be private and you can continue to earn wealth. And that's one of the reasons why I constantly go to these events, just to share with people. And a lot of other mastery students have jumped aboard because it's like, this makes sense for our family. This makes sense for our business. And there's a lot of people that have been partners that have been happy that this has come on because now they have clear structure in their partnership roles. Because that's one of the things we encourage is for everyone to have, organizational leadership, roles, responsibilities, measurements, and expectations for the roles. And this really simplifies it for everyone. And then also it doesn't encumber any of your money when you're working on multiple projects because each project is clear and individual. So you can JV with several people without having to sit there and worry about that one individual slowing down your entire business. Because the moment you're named in a lawsuit, depending on the scope of the lawsuit, they can actually stop your business progression and even close out your bank accounts or actually freeze the bank accounts until they litigate upon what's going on. And that has actually bankrupt a lot of other real estate investors when they get stuck. And you want to make sure your money is never tied up as an investor. You always want to be in control, that you can move it in and out of projects freely without any encumbrances. So that's all I got to say, unless you guys have some more questions.
Thank you. This is very, very informative. I thank you, Marie, for having them on, and this is great. I'm going to look into it more.
Yeah, it definitely was, eye-opening for me when I had my conversation with Eric and EJ, and I felt like it was something that I wanted to share with everyone. And of course, I'm sitting here going, shit, wish I didn't do my living will and trust for 3,000 last year. I should have called these guys first,
Thinking the
But
same thing.
I know. But you learn as you go, and you change directions. Sometimes we pivot, we shift. But I mean, I also talked to them about a property that I did my subject to, and we didn't put it in a trust. We did a straight transfer of title and put it in my company name, and that bank came and random audit. This was the 1 in a million girl right here. The bank's like, we're serving your ass with a Liz pendants because you transferred title and didn't inform us and didn't pay off the mortgage. So I was like, these trusts work for that too, right? We deed to the trust instead of, deeding to an LLC. So, because the bank's not really going to call on a deed to trust, because the initial reaction is that person formed a personal trust, right? And so yeah, I mean, we can use these for so many different avenues. And we talked about JV deals and one-off deals, and, partnering with someone on one specific property. And this just gives you a lot more, clear separation between all of those trusts and all of those properties. And so I will be talking to Eric and EJ a little bit more, but wanted to share it with all of you. So hopefully you guys, if not want to be a client, at least food for thought, and
Yeah, absolutely.
learn something.
Yeah, and you guys are always welcome to call us anytime. And you can even pick our brains. I mean, eventually there will come a moment when you'll be like, yeah, I'm ready to get started. But don't be afraid to call us as well. Oh, that's the lifetime benefit chart.
What is it?
Oh, that's the difference between trust and LLC. But I can show you guys another link. But my laptop's about to die, guys, since I've been driving. So I'm going to check out right now. EJ can stay on the line. You guys can chit chat. But like I said, my battery's dying. I miss you all. I can't wait to see you. I'll talk to you guys all soon,
Yeah.
okay?
And then Eric, you can share me some info, and I can share the links directly into this group. So
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Perfect. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, you can see that brochure or get a download of it by going to our website or sending us the application. We'll send you the brochure, which compares wills, living trusts, LLCs, corporations, and our private asset protection trust. Compares them all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the biggest other thing, light bulb for me, was just, those annual fees to pay to, the state of Nevada and the state of Arizona and all of this stuff, and statutory agents and all these crazy things that, this trust takes away all of those annual fees and stuff. So, when you look at it over a few years, you're going to save money regardless. So.
Another really big issue we didn't talk about was about healthcare, convalescent home, or even finding a way to stay in your house instead of going to a rest home. We actually have clauses in our house trust, if you want them, that will prevent your beautiful rotten kids from moving you into a rest home so they can sell the house. So
My sons would
we want
never
to
do that.
prevent that. We have a preventative clause that makes it impossible for them to do that while you're still alive. The other issue is that the Obama No Care is what we call it. If you get turned down, or they didn't get proper permission for the procedures they use on you, then they send you a bill. They sent my mom a bill for $3 million for what happened to my brother. And if he doesn't pay it, or if they can't take it out of his bank account, they take it out of the parents' or the children's bank accounts automatically without warning. In 28 states, they do this, and the courts have already said, oh, the family should pay first before Obamacare. A lot of people don't realize that this is actually happening. Whereas if you, like my mom, I did all the trust for my mom, although I didn't even try and do them at first, because it's, it's family. I don't want to listen to them try and complain about anything or tell me they don't need it. So I didn't do it until my dad had a stroke, and then I did it. And my mom was paying $8,000 a month for convalescent care at the time, because he weighed twice as much as my mom. She couldn't pick him up or turn him over in the bed. And the moment that they realized everything was in trust, it only went down to $3,000 a month. So, that's one or two good examples of, a major reason that you want to have this in place in case your insurance has high deductibles or they want to go after you and harass you. And if you had a living trust or a will, they first pay all your credit cards, pay all your taxes, and take a year or so to figure things out. And they charge you $5,000 a month while they do that. And while they put it off for the holidays, and while they put it off because they got a conflicting schedule and so on. None of that happens with a trust. It's instant. It's already done. And they can't take and make you pay the taxes. They can't make you pay for medical bills. They can't make you pay credit cards. You pay them if you want to. And otherwise, they get buried with you. It's like the old joke about the last words of the guy, that's dying, and she leans in real hard and she says, "What are you saying? What are you saying?" And he's saying, "Screw the IRS." I thought it was pretty funny. First time I heard it.
Now with these trusts, there's no expiration, right? Like they don't there's not a annual renewal or anything, not
Right.
like a LLC.
Right. That's a big benefit there. Yes. No annual renewal. Lasts forever. Well, I could do this all night, but you guys are probably getting bored now, so you want to go home and do other things. So you need.
Well, everything is so interesting. It's like I would like to have another meeting. If I wish we can have it in person. It's just so much information that I don't know, to process and definitely make you think about it. All these things.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing to do is get the brochure, and then make a list of questions, and then call me. I don't care if it's 10 o'clock at night. Give me a call. You pretty much catch me anytime. I rarely have calls. You might notice all this time we've been talking, I had one call, which is unusual. I'm going to call her back here as soon as we're done. But, we like to answer the phone. We like to answer your questions.
Sure, thank you.
And Eric said that he frequents, Arizona, so he definitely we can set up a live meeting for him to come back to one of our weekly huddles in the future too. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt right now to just fill out that application and kind of just talk to them and see where you stand.
I plan on looking into it.
And you only need to spend 5 or so minutes to fill out the application. We're not asking you for your private banking account information or your account numbers. We don't care. When we protect that stuff, we don't need those things. What we're asking for is your contact information and how many assets you got and approximately what they're worth and a few things like that, so we can kind of figure out how to help you best.
So then you going back, you said that this is a one-time fee. So like later on in the future, for the more properties and stuff that we accumulate and sell, there's no additional charge for that?
We don't charge anything to expand your profile, your property list, say from 1 or 2 properties or 10. If you start going above that, then you're going to need the anyway. We're going to charge you an expansion fee, but typically very few people do that. They usually, like you say, flip in and out.
Yeah.
We're not trying to nickel and dime you. I mean, if you expand or change directions on us and go into a different type of business entirely, typical expansion fee is $480, and I haven't charged one of those now in probably 6 months.
So something like that would probably be for like
I probably do.
Go ahead.
Well, I have a lot of serial entrepreneurs, guys that try one thing after another. They go multi-level and they go, flipping, and then they go consultant, and then they go, they're going to sell Amway, and they try everything. Going to open a used car lot, or and we tell them all the reasons why that's a bad idea. But then they're going to take and buy futures and do forex, and I could go on and on. But very few people are doing that. Most of them are wised up already.
So what about for us? That would be somebody that would be doing a large buy and hold portfolio. to have a substantial amount of rentals.
Well, how many rentals are you sitting with now, and how many are you expecting to be in 3 years?
Well, I could be in a lot more in 3 years. I didn't realize how many I'd have in what, 3-4 years. So.
Yeah, well, if you get froze out because the governor said that nobody has to pay rent for 6 months, will you still be in the rental business?
No. Be in the selling business, making my money back.
You better hope you can sell them fast enough. If prices are going down below what you paid for them, you may not be in the selling business much either. You'll be in,
Right.
cover your ass position. That's what you'll be in. And I've been in that position before, so I'm not talking from. It's hard to say. I mean, basically, we don't want to charge you more. So, I mean, if you said, hey, I got another property, boom, we're going to not worry about it until you probably hit like 12 different properties. But if you say, hey, I just bought, 4 new apartment buildings and, I'm going to get 4 more next week, that's when we would say, hey, this is getting a little big, But again, you'd probably be wanting to go into the tax-free zone. So then we wouldn't worry about the add-on price.
Okay.
Cool. We try and treat you like we want to be treated,
Awesome.
I signed up for a newsletter not too long ago, and the guy charged me $1,200, money back guarantee, and I used it for like 2 months, and I thought it was worthless, but I'd used it for 2 or 3 months, so I had a money back guarantee, and instead of getting my money back, I told the guy, just give me half of it back, I'll be happy, because I used it a little bit, but it's just not for me.
Right.
I mean, fair is fair,
Mm.
Well, that's what the good people are, is when they see it as fair, and not the other way around, when people just completely take complete advantage of it, like eating a whole hamburger and going back up with 1 bite left and saying, yeah, this whole thing sucked.
Exactly. That's not the kind of people we want to do business with. I mean, it's just like I was saying, NDAs, non-disclosure agreements are worthless. I mean, they're totally worthless. I mean, if I want to disclose something, all I got to do is tell my brother and let him disclose it, so I don't have to disclose nothing. Non-competition, same thing. My brother can start a trust and he can go in competition with the guy I used to be in business with. Those things are honor related rather than, technical part of the law. There is no, it's not the legal system out there. It's the, the system, and the system is it's just like what we say about most attorneys. I got 4 attorneys working for us, and 2 ex-IRS agents. I mean, we know what we're talking about, but what we joke with all the attorneys is, they're skilled in law to circumvent justice. That's what they do. If they got more research and more citations and they know the judge and go to lunch with them occasionally, they're probably going to win. But if they're the kind of guy who doesn't even research the case till you pay him the day before the trial, you're probably going to lose, because he ain't going to do the research till he gets paid, and he didn't get you to pay because you were tight on bucks until the day before the trial. When he said, I'm not going to go in there tomorrow without the money, so you pay him at the last minute, he doesn't know shit about what he's going in there for half the time. He won't remember your name hardly. That's just the way it works. So, I mean, again, our business is with people that we don't mind hanging around with. If they don't pay child support, then they won't be a client of ours. Any other questions?
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. Any more questions before we say peace and love? I'm feeling Liz's line, peace and love.
Piece of pie and love.
And I just have to say, apparently Scott has reminded me that he and I had 2 lengthy conversations with Eric on the phone like a year ago, and that's what I was trying to find in my notebook, and I can't find it, so he's gonna.
Well, then call us when you do find it.
I don't know what happened, but it went in this year and back out this year, I guess, but now we get it.
Yeah.
Liz, that's why you got to put your hand up.
I know. I don't know what this shoe, and I can't even find it in my notes, and I'm pretty good about my notes. I see the space where it would have been, but I don't know where it is. So.
Well, customer support, typically some people will ask us the same question 2 or 3 times over the course of 6 weeks or so. And a lot of our clients, the first month, they call us 5, 10, 15, even 30 times the first month. Second month, it drops down by half. And the third month, it drops down to maybe 1 call a month. And then pretty soon, they're not so worried anymore. There's a fear factor, and there's a confidence factor, and it's mystical, right now, because you haven't done it before. Just like your first house purchase was, just like your first big contract was, just like getting your driver's license when you were, 16. It's mystical until you do it. Then all of a sudden you look back and you're eating a hamburger, drinking a Coke, and driving down the street shifting gears.
Yeah, that's it. He's gonna find his notes, and then it'll recall into my brain, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well then call us and we'll go over it then.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much.
You'll have new questions now anyway, Liz.
I know, I'm done.
You're so much wiser than you were even a year ago, Liz.
I know.
I can ask smart questions.
Yeah. So, yep, it was right after the Burbank boot camp when we met Marcy. She's still on there. So anyway.
All right. Well, awesome.
And all the information and everybody here. So Marie, you want to super quick tell them what you and I talked about for the next couple weeks?
Oh yeah, so for the huddle, I haven't received information for Tapestry that we can start meeting in person yet. So next week we're gonna do another Zoom call, but the last week of this month, I would like us to do a property tour. So if you guys wanna come check out my Vermont Avenue property that Wendy just got to take a sneak peek at, they did demo and framing and all this fun stuff. I want to do that at the end of this month. And then hopefully in June, we can start having some in-person meetings. But I also think that just because everyone's spread out all over the valley, that we should continue to maybe have Zoom calls once a month. So I would like to do once a month Zoom, once a month property tour, and then the other 2 or 3 Wednesdays in the month, however long that month is, we meet at Tapestry. So I'll keep you guys informed on what exactly is going on, but I definitely think that having the Zoom call at least once a month will help keep people engaged that live too far to come travel.
Right, and even out of state, right, Susan?
Yeah. Even out of state, like Susan. And then it's great because it gives the people like EJ that are in California opportunities to come and present to us that wouldn't be able to in person. So I think it's a good opportunity. And then Chris doesn't have to drive down from,
from Prescott all the time.
over there. So I think that's it for tonight. So thank you guys so much. Please reach out to EJ at truetrustservices.com. I put his link, and I know he reached out. He said his phone number, but in case anybody missed it. Yeah, it's in the chat box, and just in case anybody wants to write it down, it's 949-497-5600.
We'll put it in the huddle spot too.
Yeah, we'll put it in there too.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, peace everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Thank you. All right.